Welcome to Amplifying Leadership. I'm your host, Tara Lehman, a partner, coach, and consultant at Twin Life Coaching and Business Services, of which Amplifying Leadership is our division. This podcast is a place dedicated to amplifying your leadership through guest stories, tips, information, and more. To learn more about our leadership division and our leadership community, please visit amplifyingleadership.ca. Today, I am welcoming Titus Walker. Titus is the CEO of Ultimate Endgamers League. Welcome to Amplifying Leadership, Titus.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Glad to have you on. Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about your leadership experiences and background?
Sure. So I have a background in real estate, actually. I started real estate probably about 12 years ago. I actually went straight into more real estate development. And so we would develop a plot of land from, and I did everything from a 2,000 home community to a 10 home community. Yeah. So we did all of the above, super communities and very small, larger lot communities, and did really well in that. So that's more my background, and then started the Ultimate Endgamers League. And became, of course you start it, so you're the CEO automatically.
Yeah.
First, you're the CEO of yourself, and then you start, kind of working your way up. And so now we have about 68 different, we have 68 people under our organization now. And so it is quite a bit to manage. And that started from, like I said, just me, and we've worked our way up and now have a very functioning team. So very happy about that.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So I like to find out if you've had any challenges in developing into your leadership skills or into leadership itself. So, talk about either business, it doesn't matter, but did you come into any major challenges that you really had to overcome as a leader?
So many. So in the esports industry, there isn't a lot of, it's video games. There's not a lot of business experience in that. And so when I came in with a business background, I think that there was a lot of people that had an idea of how things should be or how they should go. And so trying to kind of break that mold and help people understand there is a better way to do that. But I myself also had to learn how to run. I was running, 5-6 man teams. And then I normally had somebody that was, they were running a team themselves too before. Now it was all me trying to create the processes and procedures and, SOPs, those types of things. And I never really, I'll say getting into it, I didn't see the importance of doing those things, because it was all up here. And so it's I understand it. And so they should too, right? But that's not how it works, and especially when they don't have the background that you have. And so that was a major hurdle, really realizing that people aren't necessarily going to understand the vision or the procedures that you see as, common sense. It's not really common sense. It's just what because of your background. But they bring something else to the table. And if you can help them learn more about what you're supposed to be doing by really setting up those procedures, then they can teach you as well in what they've learned. And you can pick up a lot. And that's really been the story of my leadership in learning that, learning what I know and learning what I don't know. And
that's
it's been fun. Yeah.
The learning what we don't know, what we think we know, but we don't really.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very interesting that you come from a business background and you're going into an industry that, it's not new, but it's newer, we'll call it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're talking about that as being a challenge, which I can imagine it would be very difficult because even as, an entrepreneur myself, I take my corporate world and bring it with me. So you talked about S&OPs and procedures and stuff like that. Why did you find that as a challenge when you brought people on board? What was the struggle?
So most of the struggle was them not having any experience in operating a business. So coming in as a gamer that understands the world of gaming, but the world of gaming is so it's so kind of fractured and disjointed, that they don't have any sense of business. The world of gaming right now is all advertising and sponsors. That's how they make all their money, right? In esports. And so, but that isn't a sustainable way of doing things, especially when those advertisers or sponsors aren't getting anything from what you're offering. Like if you're not able to provide a return on their investment and be able to clearly state this is the return on your investment, that's not a sustainable way of doing it. And so a lot of people didn't quite understand that in gaming. And so trying to get them to kind of shift their mindset, along with even just down to like, you know, the people that we hire in the store or in the different arenas or whatever, you know, they're coming in with a lot of experience on how to organize a tournament in esports. But along with that tournament organization, upselling is not something that they do, right? You know, setting the correct price to make sure there's a return is not something that they do, you know. So it was a challenge because it's something that doesn't really exist in like you said, it's new in esports. It's all new. And the business side of it is kind of just starting to get involved. So it's kind of been the wild, wild west, and it's been run by all gamers. And so that's a good thing because I think they have something special. And I'm a gamer too. So but I just have that business background that I can tie the two together. And I think that's really what makes us so special.
So do you feel with your business background that you as a leader will lead differently than another competitor and take you further? Or is it going to hold back because your team's not fully understanding? What are your thoughts around that?
That is a great question. I think if I only had a business background and I didn't game as a kid, like all the way since I was 5 years old, play video games. Yes, I think it would hold me back. I think a lot of the people getting involved in gaming now only have that business background, you know, because, you know, gaming wasn't huge until around the 80s. And so there was games before them, but, you know, until Atari and Pong, like those types of things. And even then, those games were very different than the games we see today. So it was really like the 2000s, you know, the 90s to the 2000s when gaming took on almost like a world of its own. And so the games were more virtual than they were like a digital, like, you know, ball and a digital thing that is being bounced back and forth. And so I think that a lot of I don't want to say the older generation that is all business background that's getting involved and kind of thinks they understand that virtual world is being kind of, they're throwing money away because they don't fully understand the world they're in. And a good example would be the digital worlds that are being created right now. What are they called? The NFTs and the, you know, all of that digital space where all that's really happening in the metaverse is they're creating a virtual world that for us gamers has existed since, like I said, mid 90s, right? But the older generation had never experienced that. So for the first time, they're seeing these virtual worlds and they think, oh, this is going to be valuable one day. And the reality is, no, it's not. Like, and it probably, it could at some point, but which of those is going to be good? Like the .com era where everything, you thought every .com would be great, but really there was only like 2 that survived since the 90s, right? Or maybe 3 that survived. And so, or the 2000s, I guess, is the .com. But in that same thought process, you have this digital world that's created, and then people are selling land in this digital United States that's like just like the United States, and you can buy the Empire State Building, and you know, and people think there's a lot of value to that, and there would be if another developer couldn't come in and just do the same thing, right? And so, which of those developers is going to have the best business plan? Which of those is going to actually be sustainable and survive past this hype? Right. And the answer is probably none of them. You know, probably none of the ones you see now will be there then. And so the money you're investing now is really just being thrown away into a project that probably won't exist. And so I think that's where the disconnect is in today's gaming industry that I think that I bring to the table to answer your question.
Mhm.
Because I've lived both worlds in depth. I fully understand both worlds. But
Mhm.
if I only had one world, yes, it would be holding me back.
So now I have a question when it comes to managing teams, because you have been in two completely different worlds. Let's,
Yeah,
we're talking about gaming, which is another world anyway. So,
yeah,
so we business world teams to, e-game teams, and different, they're different. Even
hmm
how you lead them is different. Can you
yes,
share some of the differences you've seen in leading these teams, and maybe how you deal with them differently because of those differences?
yeah. So normally in the business world, everybody has like their specialty in business that so you had the loan officer that fully understood, or you hoped fully understood,
Yeah.
the loans and the process of those loans. You had the land developer that fully understand how to develop and normally, and then you had the real estate agents that understood that industry, and kind of putting them all together and helping them see the vision of what's happening going forward. That is very similar. So that experience has really helped me, because in gaming I'm doing the same thing. I'm putting all these different pieces together. The developers of the video games, the gamers themselves, and the audience, and trying to paint the picture of what esports could be, and then slowly developing that out, just like
Mhm.
parceling the land and all, painting that story. But the major difference is in the real estate world, it's existed for you know who knows
Forever.
how long,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's existed forever, and so there's been norms that have been created over time, so that you don't really have to create the norms. You don't have to like build out. You don't have to build out the industry as a whole. You're just tying yourself to that industry, and then you're not having to sell them on the dream of real estate. That dream exists,
Mhm.
right? You don't have to create the dream and sell it. Here over here in the esports world, I'm not only like I'm trailblazing something brand new.
Right.
So nobody else does it the way I do it. Nobody else, and so not only do I have to convince them that that is the right way, the industry itself doesn't exist. If you ask me,
Mhm.
the industry doesn't exist. All that exists right now is video games. The video
Mhm.
game industry is alive and well, but esports is just a buzzword. And so you have to create the esport first and then sell them on that too, and then
Right.
create the norms of what esports is and the rules around those esports. And so I think that's where the struggle is real. Like that's where it's like
Yeah.
trying to sell something that is this new. It'd be like selling basketball to somebody that's, I say it all the time. How do you sell basketball to somebody that's never seen it, never touched it? Like, what do you start with? You
Yes.
know, there's so many aspects to it. There's thousands of rules that are tied to it. There's all these different, concepts and coaching plans and strategies. And so that's really been that struggle, is the people that I get involved that have to do that too. Then also I have to do it with the audience and the developers and the businesses. And
It's
yes,
almost like that structure of the business world doesn't really exist, and so you're trying to
yes,
create it at the same time so it can become an
yes,
industry, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. So let me switch to communication a little bit here, because obviously there's, two different worlds that we're talking about, and communication is very different. I mean, some gamers that I know, being a mom, are very, very introverted, and
hmm
teamwork and stuff like that isn't a big thing that they always do. They don't have as many friends as maybe that, I did when I was young. And then you have the business world, real estate for you, which is a lot more extrovert. Not
hmm
all business worlds are, but real estate probably is more. When you look at the two types of teams when it comes to that piece, are you finding that you had a preference over one and the other? And then how did you communicate with them differently? It's almost two-part question there. So did you have a
yeah.
preference? And then how are you communicating differently? depending on where you were working?
Great question. So there's definitely huge differences, and I will go in order of the questions received.
Yes, of course.
So there's huge differences. I mean, like you said, being a gamer and being introverted is pretty normal. But the funny thing is, like, that I've recognized is gamers aren't really introverted. It's just their element is not in the world that you live in, right?
Fair.
So if I put you in a new place, you would be introverted as well. That's just society as a whole. You know, you're not gonna move someone to a new world and have them be extroverted immediately. I'm sure there's outliers out there.
Probably some.
But that's the 1% of people. 99% of people, when placed in an environment that they don't belong or they don't feel they belong, they're introverted, right? But when placed in that environment, and if you have kids that are playing in that environment, you know, they're not introverted there, right? They're extroverted there because that is their world. That is their environment. And that's an important distinction because you find that the similarities outweigh the differences in the two worlds. In real estate, you know, if I was in my element in that once I learned it, you know, at first I wasn't an extrovert. I wasn't like telling everything I could because I didn't know everything, right? I didn't really study or understand everything. And so I'm more introverted, trying to get, you know, take it all in and really understand it. But then over time, when it does become my element and it does become my world, I become extroverted all of a sudden. But I wasn't always that way. And so finding that out for me was kind of a jump, because I would have initially thought the same thing. I would have initially, you know, thought that, oh, these people are extroverted, but I'm able to see them in their element where they're not. They're really not. You know, they enjoy the social norms and the social world just as much as the next person. It's just they're misunderstood, and I believe they're also a little bit ostracized because of, you know, how they are, because it's hard to you believe that the world you're in is the only one that exists, but that's society in large. You know, society in large accepts the norms that they have, but having to step outside of that becomes uncomfortable for everybody, and so they'd rather kind of stick to that same thought process, that same norm.
I really like how you presented that, because you're right. I mean, nobody starts out, well, like you and I said, there's, you know, you said, and I giggled at, but there's probably a handful that are always out there, you know, but whenever you start something new, you're right. You're trying to take it in and you're trying to understand it first. So that makes perfect sense. So I'm very thankful that you showed your perspective on that, sorry, because I think it's very important to understand it. Absolutely. And then when it comes to the teamwork, then what were your thoughts on that side of the question?
So the teamwork aspect is very different. Like in esports, as it stands, there isn't really a teamwork aspect, not fully, because it is very much a self. What's the right word? You're gonna elevate yourself, because that's the whole goal. You want to be at the top. You want to be, you know, the guy. The support role is not as glorious as the head man in charge, right? And so, whereas in real estate, the understanding of a team is important. I can't put somebody in a home until the land is done being developed, and the loan officer can't, you know, get the loan secured until both the customer and the owner of the home and land all agree. And so that teamwork aspect is built in. There is no shining star in that environment, you know, no matter how they think of themselves. There's still no, without one, you don't have the other, right? In gaming right now, and this is a part of why I don't believe there's such thing as an esport, except for us, is that all of it is still elevating self. The teamwork aspect really only plays into the single title that they're playing, and then they go right back to having to elevate themselves. And again, that support role becomes irrelevant. And so what I've tried to kind of do, which has been a struggle, is teach the teach those elements to the kids and adults too, because there's a lot of adults that have lived in this virtual world for a long time that haven't had to step out of it, and their whole life they've just been trying to elevate themselves to be able to get, to become that streamer that they've always wanted to be, or that, but there's so many roles in between that aren't recognized. Until you get to that level, you would never know. The top streamers have the best directors. They have the best of the best marketing people. They have the best of the best. But until they got there, they didn't realize how important that was to really, They had to get to a certain point to where somebody takes on more and helps them elevate themselves. Nobody's doing it on their own, period. It doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter how it looks. You're seeing one person on camera, and that one person has a team of people that help them from the point of, really taking off. And you may get to a certain point on your own, but once you get to that point, you're not going past it until you get a team that's backing you, right?
Yeah.
So helping them understand, because that stigma and the
mindset,
perception, the perception of, you see this streamer and you assume that it's just them, you assume that, and sometimes it is, but normally it's not those people that are like, the ninja of the world that has, or the, whoever, they have a team, and that team is building together and coming up with concepts and ideas. And so that is a struggle, a big time.
Yes,
getting that team element. And so the way we do it, we are the only ones in the world that do it this way, but I always say it's 60% coaching. And so you have to be a coachable person. You have to be somebody that's willing to learn and listen and train and work as a team. And I think that's what truly makes us an esport. And so, those are the differences and similarities.
I've been loving this conversation and showing how there's two different industries that are completely different, and yet there's some similarities in there as well.
Oh, yeah.
There's always the team. The team may have to be, dealt with, treated, whatever, a little bit differently depending on what you're in, but it's always the same. There's a support system behind you. The communication has to happen no matter what you do. So let me ask you this. If you had to give our audience a key takeaway, perhaps we have somebody out there doing what you did, going from one industry to another, no matter what it is, there's differences. What would be a key takeaway that person should know about when switching industries?
I'd say first, do your research. Like, make sure you understand the industry that you're going into, as much as you can, if not more than what you're coming from. Because getting into this new industry, you're gonna have those challenges, but you don't want the challenges that you could have avoided just by doing, that research. The one thing that I pride myself on is how much research I do. When I get into something, I know all about it. Like, you're not going to be able to tell me something new with that I don't have to experience myself. And so that I think that would be a key thing. Just make sure that you are truly researching and understanding what you're getting yourself into as much as humanly possible. All the information's out there. Like, you have Google, you have YouTube, you have all these resources that you can use. And I read a lot. So, you have different books that you can read to fully understand what it is you're getting yourself into. That way, when you start it, nobody can tell you anything and I say it, I don't want to say that in a way that sounds bad, but I know what I know. I know what I know. You cannot tell me what I know, right?
Right.
I already know it. I also, though, I am very good at knowing what I don't know. Yeah. And that's very important to really, really know that, right? Because then you're not falling prey to people that have zero experience in what it is they're talking about, telling you that something can or can't be done. And then you falling prey to it and thinking that what they're saying is true, because of whatever, whatever the reasoning. But that's something that, I had 3.5 years. I've been doing this for 4 years. I had 3.5 years of everyone telling me that I was doing it wrong. Everyone, every person. Doesn't matter who it was. Doesn't matter what industry they were in. They all told me I did it wrong. But now we've had 6 months probably 6 months to a year. I haven't had a single person, not one tell me I'm wrong. And I've talked to everyone in esports. I'm like, we are the largest multi-game league in the world. And not a single person tells me I'm doing it wrong now. But I had to get through that initial, I got through it because I knew what I knew. You couldn't tell me, you couldn't tell me. So it doesn't matter. Like, okay, great. That's your opinion. I'm going to keep going. So.
Yeah. And I like that as a key takeaway, especially for leaders who are going from one industry to another, and you're leading a different team and you might not know that industry well. And so researching what you can about the company, about the teams, about the industry in general will help you with leading that team, especially if it's so different, like what you've experienced,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
You really want to understand what you're getting into.
Exactly. Yeah. So great piece of advice. And thank you very much for that. An awesome conversation today. Let me ask you, if anybody out there wanted to learn more about you or find you online, is there a way that they can do that?
Absolutely. So you can contact my assistant at info@uelesports.com. Olivia is awesome, and she will definitely be able to take care of you. So info@uelesports.com. You can follow us on all social medias at UEL Esports, UEL as in Ultimate Endgamers League. And then you can go to uel.com or uelesports.com for our website as well. So yeah, everything's just UEL Esports. And we're the first thing that pops up. So
thank you so much, Titus. It was a very interesting conversation and one I think that people need to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
I thank you to our audience as well. We do hope that you're able to gain some valuable information or tips today. If you are a leader who knows that leadership coaching, consulting, and community are the way to grow your leadership journey, please visit us at amplifyingleadership.ca. That's .ca for Canada, a twin life coaching and business services division. Until next time, please be safe and be an amazing leader or leader to be.